Hello, guys and gals, and this is part 2 of our reading of Alfred Hitchcock Presents Stories Not for the Nervous, and in particular, the story, To the Future? It was a Ray Bradbury story, I remember that much. To the Future by Ray Bradbury. And we got almost done with it, but not quite. Anyways, it revolves around these two people from the future who are trying to escape the future because it's, awful. And this guy from the future is trying to capture them. So it's a lot like Time Cop, But you have to take into account that this was a long time ago before Time Cop came along. So it's really an amazing story. Anyways, as always, we're going to go over the copyright information. As it says right here. Sorry. Okay. It was the author gratefully acknowledges the invaluable assistance of Robert Arthur in the preparation of this volume, presented by Dell Publishing, and then the copyright information is there, copyright, and then all the different copyright information, all the different printings, and we're going to go over the acknowledgements too, not vocally, but they will be on the screen for a little bit, and you can either pause to read those, or I'll leave them up on the screen for a little bit. But yeah, anyways, we're going to continue where we left off. Bill was just saying, that he would go back willingly if his wife was allowed to stay away from the war. Okay. And then we're going to go over that part again, just because. I've got a proposition, said William. I'll come back with you if my wife stays here alive, safe, away from that war. Mr. Sims debated. All right, meet me at the plaza in 10 minutes. Pick me up in your car. Drive me to a deserted country spot. I'll have the travel machine pick us up, and there won't be any witnesses. Bill, Susan held his arm tightly. Don't argue. He looked over at her. It's settled. To Sims, one thing. Last night you could have got in our room and kidnapped us. Why didn't you? Shall we say I was enjoying myself? Replied Mr. Sims languidly, sucking his new cigar. I hate giving up this wonderful atmosphere, this sun, this vacation. I regret leaving behind the wine and the cigarettes. Oh, how I regret it. Oh, how I regret leaving behind the wine and the cigarettes. Oh, how I regret it. The plaza then, in 10 minutes. Your wife will be protected and may stay here as long as she wishes. Say your goodbyes. Mr. Sims arose and walked out. There goes Mr. Big Talk, yelled Mr. Meltan at the departing gentleman. He turned and looked at Susan. Hey, somebody's crying. Breakfast's no time for people to cry, now is it? At 9:15, Susan stood on the balcony of their room, gazing down at the plaza. Mr. Sims was settled there, his neat legs crossed on a delicate bronze bench. Biting the tip from a cigar, he lighted it tenderly. Susan heard the throb of a motor, and far up the street, out of a garage, and down the cobbled hill, slowly came William in his car. The car picked up speed, 30, now 40, now 50 miles an hour. Chickens scattered before it. Mr. Sims took off his white Panama hat and mopped his pink forehead, put his hat back on, and then saw the car. It was rushing 60 miles an hour straight for the plaza. William! Screamed Susan. The car hit the low plaza curb, thundering, jumping up speed across the tiles toward the green bench where Mr. Sims now dropped his cigar, shrieked, flailed his hands, and was hit by the car. His body flew up and up in the air and down crazily into the street. On the front side of the plaza, one front wheel broken, the car stopped. People were running. Susan went in and closed the balcony doors. They came down the official plaza steps together, arm in arm, their faces pale at 12 noon. Adios, senor, said the mayor behind them. Senora. They stood in the plaza where the crowd was pointing at the blood. Will they want to see you again? Asked Susan. No, we went over it and over it. It was an accident. I lost control of the car. I wept for them. God knows I had to get my relief out somewhere. I felt like weeping. I hated to kill him. I never wanted to do anything like that in my life. They won't persecute you? They talked about it, but no, I talked faster. They believed me. It was an accident. It's over. Where will we go? Mexico City? The car's in the repair shop. It'll be ready at 4 this afternoon, and then we can get the heck out. Will we be followed? Was Sims working alone? I don't know. We'll have a little head start on them, I think. The film people were coming out of the hotel as they approached. Mr. Melton hurried up, scowling. Hey, I heard what happened. Too bad. Is everything okay now? Want to get your minds off it? We're doing some preliminary shots up the street. You want to watch? You're welcome. Come on. Do you good. They went. They stood on the coupled street where the film camera was being set up. Susan looked at the road leading down and away at the highway going to Acapulco, and the sea past pyramids and ruins, and little adobe towns with yellow walls, blue walls, purple walls, and flaming bougainvillea. She thought, we shall take the roads, travel in clusters and crowds, in markets, in lobbies, bribe police to sleep near, keep double locks, but always the crowds, never alone again. Always afraid the next person who passes might be another Sims. Never knowing if we've tricked and lost the searchers, and always up ahead in the future they'll wait for us to be brought back, waiting with their bombs to burn us, and disease to rot us, and their police to tell us to roll over, turn around, jump through the hoop, and so we'll keep running through the forest, and we'll never ever stop or sleep well again in our lives. A crowd gathered to watch the film being made, and Susan watched the crowd and the street. Seen anyone suspicious? No. What time is it? 3 o'clock. The car should almost be ready. The test film was finished at 3:45. They all walked down to the hotel, talking. William paused at the garage. The car will be ready at 6, he said, coming out. But no later than that. It'll be ready, don't worry. In the hotel lobby, they looked around for other men traveling alone, men who resembled Mr. Sims, men with new haircuts and too much cigarette smoke and cologne smell about them. But the lobby was empty. Going up the stairs, Mr. Melton said, well, it's been a long, hard day. Who'd like to pull a header? Who'd like to put a header on it? Martini? Beer? Maybe one. The whole crowd pushed into Mr. Melton's room, and the drinking began. Watch the time, said William. Time, thought Susan. If only they had time. All she wanted was to sit in the plaza all of the long, bright day in spring, with not a worry or a thought, with the sun on her face and arms, her eyes closed, smiling at the warmth, and never move but just sleep in the Mexican sun. Mr. Melton opened the champagne. To a very beautiful lady. Lovely enough for films, he said, toasting Susan. I might even give you a test. She laughed. I mean it, said Melton. You're very nice. I could I could make you a movie star. And take me to Hollywood? Uh, get the heck out of Mexico, sure. Susan glanced at William and he lifted an eyebrow and nodded. It would be a change of scenery, of scene, clothes, locale, name, perhaps, and they would be traveling with 8 other people. A good shield against the interference from the future. It sounds wonderful, said Susan. She was feeling the champagne now. The afternoon was slipping by. The party was whirling about her. She felt safe and good and alive and truly happy for the first time in many years. What kind of film would my wife be good for? Asked William, refilling his glass. Melton appraised Susan. The party stopped laughing and listened. Well, I'd like to do a story of suspense, said Melton. A story of a man and wife like yourself. Go on. Sort of a war story, maybe, said the director, examining the color of his drink against the sunlight. Susan and William waited. Oh, wow. A story about a man and wife who lived in a little house on a little street in the year 2155, maybe, said Melton. This is ad lib, understand, but the man and wife are faced with a terrible war. Superplus hydrogen bombs, censorship, death in that year, and here's the gimmick. They escape into the past, followed by a man who they think is evil, but who is only trying to show them what their duty is. William dropped his glass to the floor. Mr. Melton continued. And this couple take refuge with a group of film people whom they learn to trust. Safety in numbers, they say to themselves. Susan felt herself slip down into a chair. Everyone was watching the director. He took a sip of wine. Ah, that's a fine wine. Well, this man and woman, it seems, didn't realize how important they are to the future. The man especially is the keystone to a new bomb medal, so the searchers, let's call them, spare no trouble or expense to find, capture, and take home the man and wife. Once they get them totally alone in a hotel room where no one can see, strategy, the searchers work alone or in groups of 8. One trick or another will do it. Don't you think it would make a wonderful film, Susan? Don't you, Bill? He finished his drink. Susan sat with her eyes straight ahead. Have a drink, said Mr. Melton. William's gun was out and fired 3 times, and one of the men fell, and the others ran forward. Susan screamed. A hand was clamped to her mouth. Now the gun was on the door, and William was struggling with the men holding him. Mr. Melton said, please, standing there Mr. Melton said, please, standing there where he had stood, blood showing on his fingers. Let's not make matters worse. Someone pounded on the hall door. Let me in. The manager, said Mr. Melton dryly. He jerked his head. Everyone, let's move. Let me in. I'm calling the police. Susan and William looked at each other quickly and then at the door. The manager wishes to come in, said Mr. Melton. Quick. The camera was carried forward. From it shot a blue light which encompassed the room. Instantly it widened out, and the people of the party vanished one by one. Quickly. Outside the window, in the instant before she vanished, Susan saw the green land and the purple and yellow and blue and crimson walls and the cobbles flowing like a river. A man upon a burro riding into the warm hills. A boy drinking orange pop. She could feel the sweet liquid in his throat. She could see a man standing under a cool under a cool plaza tree with a guitar. She could feel her hand upon the strings, and far away she could see the sea, the blue and tender, the blue and tender sea. She could feel it rolling her over and take her in. And then she was gone. Her husband was gone. The door burst wide. The manager and his staff rushed in. The room was empty. But they were just here. I saw them come in, and now gone, cried the manager. The windows are covered with iron grating. They couldn't have gotten out that way. In the late afternoon, the priest was summoned, and they opened the room again and aired it out, and had him sprinkle holy water through each corner and give it a cleansing. What shall we do with these? asked the chairwoman. She pointed to the closet where there were 67 bottles of chartreuse, cognac, crema de coco, absinthe, vermouth, tequila, 106 cartons of Turkish cigarettes, and 196 yellow boxes of 50-cent pure Havana filtered cigars. And that's all for that story. Let's see what we have here. Okay, we have time to read River of Riches, or at least to start it, and it is by Gerald Kersh. Yeah, Kersh. Gerald Kersh. I'm not familiar with this author, so this should be good. Okay, so about the man called Pilgrim. There was a certain air of something gone stale. Seedy is the word for it. He applied to a human being. It is difficult to regard him except as a careful housewife regards a pot of homemade jam, upon the surface of which she observes a patch of mildew. Sweet but questionable, she says to herself, but it is a pity to waste it. Give it to the poor. So as it seemed to me, it was with Pilgrim. He was curiously appealing to me in what looked like a losing fight against Skid Row, and maintained a haughty reserve when the bartender, detaining him as he abstractedly started to stroll out of the macaroons grill, said, That'll be $1.10, Doc." Pilgrim slapped himself on the forehead and beat himself about the pockets and cried, "My wallet! I left it at home." Oh, the bartender said, lifting the counter flap. "Then I say, here's the $1.10, Mike. Let the man go." The pilgrim would not go. He took me by the arm and said in the old-fashioned drawling kind of Oxford accent, "No, but really, this is too kind. I'm afraid I can't reciprocate as a fellow limey. You will understand. One's position here becomes invidious. You see, I have only just now lost two fortunes, and am in the trough of the wave between the second and the third, which I assure you is not farther off than the middle of the next month. I must get to Detroit, but allow me to introduce myself by the name by which I prefer to be known, John Pilgrim. Call me Jack. In honesty, I ought to tell you that this is not my real name. If some plague were to wipe out the male members of my family in a certain quarter of Middlesex in England, I should be addressed very differently, and ride my horses to boot. As matters stand, I am the younger son of a younger son, cast out with a few £1,000 in my pockets to make a fortune in Canada. I asked, "Was that your first fortune?" "Heavens, no, man. On the boat heavens, no. Man on the boat had an infallible system, shooting dice. I ride in Canada, sir, with $4.18, and my clothes. I roughed it, I assure you. Clerk in a hardware store dismissed on unjust suspicion of of peculation. Errand boy as a consulate kicked out for what they called shaken down an applicant for a visa, which was a lie. Representative of a wine merchant wrongly accused of drinking the samples. I went through the mill. I do assure you. And now I am offered a lucrative post in Detroit. Doing what? I asked. He said, checking things for a motor company. What things? A word to the wise is sufficient. This is strictly hush-hush. Less said the better. What? But I can put you in the way for a few $1,000,000 if you have time and money to spare. Pray do so, I said. I will, but not being a complete fool, I must not be exact in my geography. Do you know Brazil? I do know where there is a massive fortune in virgin gold in one of the tributaries of the Amazon. Oh dear, I do. Oh dear, it really is a bitter fact that men with money who want some more insist on having the more before they lay out the less. Yet I tell you, without the least reserve, that I got about 10,000 ounces of pure gold out of the people who live by the river. And how did you manage that? I asked. Pilgrim smiled at me and said, I dare say you have heard of the tacte, of the tacte nut? No? Well, the tacte nut comes from Ecuador. It is something like an English walnut, only perfectly oval, almost as in the case with the walnut. The kernel of the tacte nut resembles in its lobes, twists, and convulsions the human brain. It is bitter to eat and is used generally by children for playing with, as we used to play with marbles. Oh, but this is Ecuador. Go into Brazil, into a certain tributary of the Amazon, and I can show you a place where these nuts, so close relation to theirs, are taken very seriously indeed. The tribesmen do not call them tacte, but TikTok. And only adults play with these nuts in Brazil. Okay. For extremely high stakes, too, fortunes, as they are counted in these wild parts, are won or lost in one game with the TikTok nuts. The savages have a saying there, TikTok takes 20 years to learn, to proceed, ... For vicissitude is the destiny of the younger son, he said. I could, of course, have written to my elder brother for money. In fact, I did, but he didn't answer. In the end, I shipped as cook on a freighter bound for South America. I suspected it was running guns. The crew was composed of the offscourings of Lapland, Finland, Iceland, and San Francisco. I jumped ship first opportunity with nothing in my pockets but the paper of an oiler named Martinson, which I must have picked up by accident and looked as one does for a fellow countryman. Luckily, I have the most astonishing luck. I overheard a man in a bar ordering whiskey and soda without ice. Blood calls to blood. I was at his elbow in a trice. He was a huge fellow, and was about to go to the place which, if you will forgive me, I won't mention. Prospecting for rubies, desirous of civilized company, he invited me to come along with him. Said he would make it worth my while. Offered me a share in the profits. He found the equipment of course, quinine, rifles, trade goods, shotguns, soap, and all that. His idea was that the market being good just then, if the worst came to worst, we might make our expense out of snakeskin and alligator hide. His name was Grimes, but he knew a gentleman when he saw one. But he was accident prone, exploring mud for rubies. Grimes stood on a log to steady himself. The log came to life, opened a pair of jaws, and carried him off. An alligator, of course. They tell me that a mature alligator can, with his jaws, exert the pressure of nearly 1,000 pounds weight. It upsets me, I don't mind telling you. Ever since then, I have never been able to look at an alligator without disgust. They bring me bad luck. The following morning, I awoke to find my attendants all gone. They had paid themselves in trade goods, leaving me with only what I slept in, pajamas, plus a rifle, a bandolier of 30-30 cartridges, my paper, and some dried beef. We're going to stop it here. We have been reading from River of Riches by... I'm going to have to look up the name again. Here. I've almost found it. Okay. I'll just use the index. River of Riches by Gerald Kersh. We have been reading from that, and we finished off the To the Future by Ray Bradbury. Anyways, we've been reading from Alfred Hitchcock Presents, Stories Not for the Nervous, an anthology of horror stories, or scary stories. Anyways, if you like this content, then make sure you like and subscribe and ring the bell so you know when I upload. Also, if you want to support me in any way, or if you want to join the Discord server, then all that information will be in the description below. As always, thanks for watching, everyone, and have a great day.